So as we work through the Clone Wars in battle analysis, we're getting closer to the Battle of Kamino, one of the most significant battles of the war, and I figured we could take a closer look today at why Kamino wasn't attacked and why it mattered so much in the conflict as a whole. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So Kamino is obviously one of the most strategically significant worlds to the Republic. It's the home of the clone army, it's where the clones are raised and trained, and it's the closest thing to a home that the clone troopers have, so it carries a lot of personal baggage within the Grand Army of the Republic, but it plays a much larger role in the conflict as a whole. Not only was it where the clone troopers were bred and raised, but it's where a lot of their equipment was made. While their vehicles were made elsewhere in the galaxy, places like Rathana Heavy Engineering and Kuat Drive Yards, the clone troopers' armor and even a lot of their weapons were manufactured right there on Kamino, meaning that the loss of Kamino would not only affect the Republic's supply of soldiers, but their ability to equip the soldiers they already had. It would have a widespread psychological effect on the Grand Army of the Republic as well, with Kamino being the closest thing most clone troopers had to a home. Hearing that it had been occupied by the Separatists would be a morale blow basically across the galaxy to the Grand Army of the Republic. And lastly, there's training facilities there. The facilities used to train clone troopers for combat were on Kamino, which they would attend while they were being raised, and it's fairly likely that clone trooper units that weren't actively engaged in combat would often be cycled back to Kamino for sort of refresher training, or to be trained up on new equipment. That would have to stop were Kamino taken by the Separatists. Now, there is something that's worth mentioning here that I think should be just kind of put out there, that if Kamino was ever to be taken by Separatist forces, it's likely that there would be a fairly quick counterattack to retake it, and a fairly large one at that, because both sides understand the strategic significance of Kamino. So if Kamino was so important, why wasn't it the first place the Separatists attacked after the Battle of Geonosis? After all, they carried out a bunch of offensives in the opening months of the war, but none of them hit Kamino. Well, for starters, we can take distance right off the table, because Kamino is actually basically on the border of Republic space and Separatist space. It would actually be a fairly easy target, geographically, for Separatist forces to move to and engage. So if Kamino's right there, why didn't the Separatists move on it quickly? Well, there are three factors that likely kept the Separatists from immediately assaulting Kamino. The first off is the intelligence of where the clone army came from. At the Battle of Geonosis, we can see Separatist leadership being confused by the appearance of the massive army serving the Republic, so they wouldn't have necessarily known for sure that these clones were clones, or that these clones had been bred on a world known as Kamino. There was obviously a short period of time where the Separatists were just in complete confusion over where the Republic military had come from. But it wouldn't be long before they would find out, because not only were the Separatists asking, where is this army coming from, the people of the Republic were asking similar questions too. And as word got out that there was a planet of cloners that were manufacturing these troops, it would have become more clear that Kamino was the home of the clone army. But that raises the next question: where is Kamino? You see, Kamino was a planet that was scrubbed from a lot of galactic records as part of the plan to build the Grand Army of the Republic. As a result, the Separatists likely didn't know where Kamino was at the start of the conflict. There may have been a few maps here and there that would have had it on their charts, but it wasn't necessarily a common planet to see on star maps. But even after Separatists had figured out where Kamino was, and that it was where the clone troopers were coming from, there was still a pretty significant obstacle in their path. You see, in the early days of the war, the Republic was slowly rolling their troops out into the battlefield, which is why those early Separatist offensives had so much success. But the only place where there would have been a very high concentration of Republic troops would have been Kamino. Kamino was one of the few places in the early months of the war that was crawling with clone troopers. An invasion of Kamino would have to face some of the stiffest resistance the Separatists had ever seen. Even as clone troopers started to disperse around the galaxy, a massive defensive network of listening posts, defensive platforms, and even a large stationed fleet were in place to defend Kamino, because the Republic understood how important this world was to their war effort. Even under the best circumstances, an invasion of Kamino was still going to be an uphill battle for the Separatists, even if they made that invasion on day 2 of the war. But I've actually talked a lot about the history of Kamino, and I'll leave a link up here to one of the videos where I've talked about the history of Kamino, or Tipoca City, the home of the cloning program on that planet. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments whether you think it was smart for the Republic to keep the cloning operation on Kamino. After all, it's on the border of separatist space. Should they have taken it and moved it to another corner of the galaxy, or should they have left it there because all the infrastructure was already in place for this large operation, and was building a massive defensive perimeter just the right decision? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.